Now you may not know it, but these are some of the best and most effective herbs for candida, yeast, and bacterial issues. The pharmacopoeia of traditional Chinese medicine goes back to the BC era, and the very fact that we have herbal formulas that are demonstrating sophisticated pharmacology suggests that this is probably going back tens of thousands of years and is probably part of the original human historical record. But what's most amazing to me is that these formulas still work just as well as they did way back when. Modern research even suggests that these herbs are extremely effective for candida, yeast, and bacterial issues. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Alex Heyne, board licensed doctor of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, and author of the health book Master the Day. So let's jump in. Now there's a weird diagnosis that many people get from acupuncturists or Chinese medicine doctors. And that diagnosis that most commonly overlaps with candida and yeast issues and bloating and fungal issues most often is something called spleen qi deficiency. If I had to pick one organ, it's mostly related to the pancreas. Primarily, the pancreas's functions around producing digestive enzymes. So when you think about people who often have candida and yeast issues, from like a traditional point of view, you might see, for example, a thick white tongue coat, very diagnostic, very obvious, looks like thrush. You might see lots of bloating, lots of clearing of the throat, lots of blowing of the nose, primarily a lot of gut issues, right? Getting a food baby after meals, lots of gas. A lot of them have small intestine bacterial overgrowth as well. All of these can fall under that candida category there. A lot of the time, this diagnosis is the predisposing factor that leads you to develop this to a pathological degree. Everyone gets bloated from time to time. Everyone gets a white tongue coat when they get sick from time to time. And people can easily get digestive upset, loose stools, women can get yeast infections or UTIs. It's not a big deal. But some people deal with this very chronically. And they deal with this chronically to the point where they begin to seek out medical care because this becomes an issue that is really impacting their entire life. Anything that is a chronic issue, the most important question is, what is the underlying susceptibility that is making me predisposed to having this recurring? Because if you get something once, that's fine. If I get a sinus infection once, who cares? But if I get a sinus infection every year, every month, every season, now there's a susceptibility. Something is imbalanced in the microbiome or elsewhere in the body that is causing you to have an Achilles heel that is being attacked. So when we talk about this diagnosis of what we call spleen qi deficiency, very commonly, it's not enough pancreatic enzymes. So people get a food baby easily, lots of bloating and indigestion with their meals. Very commonly is low stomach acid, a phenomenon where you feel like food is just sitting in your stomach like a rock, called delayed gastric emptying or gastroparesis. This is very commonly seen with low stomach acid and low pancreatic enzymes. These are commonly people who are taking over-the-counter digestive enzymes with every meal, or if they see a functional doc or a naturopath, they are often getting prescribed digestive enzymes or betaine hydrochloric acid. On top of that, you're probably getting lots of bloating, lots of loose stools, and what people often call food allergies. You just feel like you can't really eat anything. And increasingly, you're eating a more and more specialized sort of diet. And that's purely because basically your digestive system is very weak. The dysbiosis, the deficiency of stomach acid, not enough enzymes, you basically have this half-fermented soup in your digestive system and your stomach, and your body can't quite break it down. So this incomplete digesting, if you want to call it that, leads to excessive gas production, irregular bowels, and that kind of thing. Now let's talk about 3 common herbs used in traditional Chinese medicine for treating this, and actually what the research says. The main issue in candida and yeast issues is that for so many people it becomes chronic. If it's chronic, that means there's a root cause of some kind of disruption that's going on in the microbiome, with the immune system, the lymphatic system, all kinds of different parts of your body. If you're not really sure what that root cause is, this is a chronic issue for you, I'd highly recommend you download the quiz right below this video. Should be the first link below this video. You can also go to dralexheyne.com/quiz, and that quiz will help you figure out. We've put together a 12-page assessment that's free that will help you look at what are my main symptoms. Then you can figure out, is this more pancreas stomach acid related? Is it more gallbladder related? Is it something else related? So download that quiz, fill in, put in your little personalized score there. And then we've actually taken the time to link to other videos in the channel that will help you figure out where those symptoms are coming from. So I would highly recommend downloading that or just going to dralexheyne.com/quiz to get it. So the first herb we use is called ho po or magnolia. So magnolia bark is a very, very aromatic smelling herb. And hopua we traditionally use for two main uses in Chinese medicine. One is that hopua is often used for bloating and abdominal distension, so it has a very, very good effect for GI health. Secondarily, hopua is used for treating anxiety. There's a famous formula called banxia hopua tang. Banxia is an herb called Pinellia. Hopua is an herb called hopua, magnolia. And this combination of formula is an ancient formula typically used for a subjective sensation of having a lump in your throat that feels like you swallowed a piece of meat that's stuck there. It's called globus hystericus in Latin. Often seen in people under high stress or with emotions or anxiety or worries, along with bloating and GI issues. So the herb banxia in particular is very good for altering levels of stomach acid, very good for phlegm, that kind of thick phlegm when you have acid reflux. And then the hopua is for some of the other aspects related to anxiety and the mental emotional. This research paper here is called Antifungal Compounds Against Candida Infections from Traditional Chinese Medicine. What these researchers found was that one of the active compounds from magnolia helped with symptoms like anxiety, nervous disturbance, asthma, and digestive problems. Also helps break down Candida albicans, which is one of the primary species of Candida that we see. The researchers also found that compounds from the essential oil of mint, such as menthol and menthone, suppress the growth of Candida albicans as well. Now, the second herb is called huanglian, or coptis. Now, huanglian is one of the most bitter Chinese herbs you can take. These very, very, very extremely bitter herbs that are very yellow are high in a compound called berberine. And in addition, a lot of these very, very bitter herbs are extremely antibacterial and antifungal by nature. For example, women with yeast infections or people with jock itch, we will often use formulas high in the herb huanglian. Huanglian is very, very good for what's called damp heat. And if you can imagine the conditions that lead to, for example, recurring jock itch, fungal issues, athlete's foot, what's called damp heat very often is bacterial or fungal issues that are chronic. Sometimes those issues are local, but sometimes they're also systemic. So that's why taking these herbs internally can be very, very effective to prevent the recurrence of some of these issues. Huanglian in this case is extremely antibacterial. This paper here is called The Potent Antimicrobial Activity of Traditional Chinese Medicine Herbs Against Candida Species. Now, what researchers found was that huanglian in particular was very, very effective against a few species of Candida, 3 of them to be fact. Candida glabrata, Candida krusei, and Candida tropicalis. So these are 3 different kinds of Candida. And that huanglian was very, very effective versus the placebo or versus the control group at killing off these buggers. This aligns with several thousand years of Chinese medicine advice for how you kill off bad bugs in the gut, bacterial and fungal infections. You have to use herbs that we say clear damp heat. Now, a third herb you may know called shebai or garlic has been used east and west for a very, very long time in history. Now, here's what researchers said about the effect that shebai or garlic has on Candida. In this particular study, they found that it had been used as an antimicrobial agent for thousands of years east and west. And the way it has an antifungal effect was through introducing oxidative stress and depleting glutathione. So shebai, commonly used in Chinese medicine for either excessive bloating, but it also can be used for that kind of stuffiness in the chest people can get when they have lots of gas production. If you've ever felt lots of chest pain, but you know it's from gas, it's in the left upper quadrant. Shebai, in the way that it's prepared in Chinese medicine, is very, very good for unblocking that sensation. What about on a dietary level? Like, what if you don't take any of these herbs, you don't see me, you don't see a practitioner? What can you do on a dietary level for these Candida and these yeast issues? The number one thing you can do is actually follow a low FODMAP diet. So either going on the specific carbohydrate diet, which is basically a very low carbohydrate diet, or the specific carbohydrate diet, which avoids many of the different kinds of sugars, from fruit, from starches, and from grains, that kind of thing. These bugs in the gut that often lead to excessive amounts of bloating, they often primarily feed on the sugars. The sugars include many kinds of carbohydrates too, not just eating donuts and eating candy bars. Going on a very low carb diet, even just for 5 days, in my experience, 72 hours, will produce a rapid decrease in the amount of bloating and the amount of Candida that you see both on your tongue and as well as subjectively what you feel. The second thing I would recommend is something that's called the Khichdi cleanse from Ayurveda. The Khichdi cleanse is a very unique dietary modification where basically you introduce lots of stimulating pungent spices and basically have a very Spartan, almost monk-like meal planned for basically a week or so. On the Khichdi cleanse, you use the stimulating spices to increase the appetite and to help resolve some of the bloating that's going on underneath. Typically, this Dietary cleanse is very good for that diagnosis, which is spleen qi deficiency. These kinds of additions of spices are often the same treatment methodology we use in Chinese medicine to stimulate appetite. And you even see this in parts of the world where the climate is very, very humid. Ironically, where there's very hot climates, people like eating very spicy foods. You wouldn't think that'd be true, but the heat really kills your appetite. And so this helps really get out that sort of dampness, as we call it. Now, one final thought here. The very, very bitter herbs are often the most important to help regulate your gut microbiome. When you have, for example, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, when there is this influx of the quote bad bugs, it is the bitter, heat-clearing herbs of Chinese medicine, the huanglian, for example, that will kill off and rebalance your microbiome. You know, conventional medicine and even functional medicine, they will just give you antibiotics to basically nuke your entire microbiome and hope that it repopulates itself properly. But sometimes people have to do that multiple times, and sometimes, even after multiple tries, there still are issues with SIBO and candida and yeast. The unique brilliance of Chinese medicine is that we use formulas that are one part what we call excess removing, killing off the bad bugs, and then rebuilding the microbiome. So we use herbs like dazao, jujube date, ginseng, as well as dried licorice and dried ginger to help rebalance that good milieu of the bacteria and the ratio of good to bad. So don't forget, combining the two often gets much better results for a much longer period of time. So that's what I have for you today, guys. Don't forget, I work with a limited number of new patients every month in my clinic in Los Angeles or virtually via telemedicine. If you want to work with me one-on-one or learn more, just go to dralexheyne.com/clinic. There should be information right below this video, the clinic phone number, email, and booking link if you want to read more and learn more. And then don't forget, before you go, I've actually put together a great related video on GI issues and candida and yeast right up here.